Welcome to Dr. Jeffrey Roth's Looking Good and Feeling Great podcast, live from Las Vegas, with his co-host, Darrell Craig Harris.
How are you doing, Dr. Roth?
Absolutely spectacular. Welcome, welcome. It's Dr. Jeffrey Roth, your board-certified plastic surgeon in Las Vegas, Nevada, and we're at it again.
I know, and we've been having so much fun, and we've covered so many different topics. One of the topics we were just recently talking about privately was the pressures of being a doctor, of running a small business, what you think it might be being a young resident versus what the reality is. The rubber hits the road, so to speak.
Right.
What's your thoughts on that?
Well, things have changed. I mean, we can spider into 100 different things, but things have changed since I was a resident. For good and for bad, it's progress. That's how that goes. As far as being a resident, I think nowadays there's more technology. I think that there is some more help in the fact that we have now PAs, we have nurse practitioners, which can be very helpful. And again, I was just up at a conference at UCSF, and there was this cadre of helpers, and which we didn't have back in the day. And so I think that that's nice as a team. And as everybody works together as a team, and that may tend to free up the residents to go ahead and do more surgeries or that sort of thing. Because if you ask a resident, hey, you're going to work 100 hours a week, but you can be in the OR. Oh, yeah, where do I sign up?
Right, because that's the whole reason why they want to be there.
It's all the other stuff. Oh, yeah, the IV fell out. Okay, well, Mrs. Smith fell out of it. So which is necessary and such, but sometimes, they can definitely wear on you. The model that I went through was basically, they trained you really well. They trained you to be typically an academic surgeon, which means you would finish and then you would either go on to fellowship or you would go ahead and take an academic job at another university and be an assistant professor, then an associate professor, then a full professor, et cetera, and write the papers and teach residents, which is awesome, which is just spectacular. And
yeah, it probably depends a bit on your calling, really.
Yeah, on your calling, your personality, the opportunities, all of that. And that was kind of my line. And so to that effect, you don't get a lot of, hey, what's going, if I wanted to be in private practice, ... how do you do that? And then if I wanted to do aesthetic plastics, how would I do that? And so back when I was going, both of those were really kind of not forbidden subjects, but just something you didn't bring up because you were so busy doing reconstructive and putting fingers back on and all the stuff in the lab and all that stuff coming out. So, you're there for forever. You fast forward, in my case, a decade. And so at the end of all of this, okay, so now you're out. And so I decided, well, I don't think I thought about academics, but I don't think I'm going to do that for a variety of reasons. And so I'm going to go out in the community. But I still wanted to be academic in as much as I still wanted to write papers and books
keep learning,
and all that stuff.
Right.
So all that stuff. And in plastics, you can really kind of still do that. And Dr. Jack Sheen told me that. He says, you don't have to be an academician to do, to write books and give lectures and stuff like that.
Or even today, having a podcast.
Right. So you're able to get your out. So having said that, I'm like, all right, well, I'll go ahead and let's do the private practice thing. And so I came back to my hometown because I wanted to come back to the hometown Las Vegas. And basically, now I go and, all right, well, how do you do this? How do you open a business? How do you start a practice? How do you?
Because they don't really teach you that in college, right?
Well, no. In the 18 years of formal education after high school, 18 years, I got exactly 0 days of business. 0.
Right.
Now at that point, I can crack open a chest and stick my thumb in somebody's heart. I could crack open somebody's skull and slurp out blood. I could all of it. I can run a 75 patient service and do all kinds of crazy stuff in the ICUs and ERs and stuff. But somebody handed me a profit and loss. I'm like, what's this?
Right.
And they're like, oh, really? So now I'll take a step back. The other interesting thing is okay, well, I guess I got to set up a practice, which means, let's say I got to go to license, I got to go to somewhere to see patients, and I got to get on staff in hospitals and stuff like that. And so the hospitals said, okay, you trained in good places and blah, 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 and all that jazz. So, okay, but you're going to need some money. Oh, okay. Well, how do I get that?
And meanwhile, you still have your student loans.
Yeah, so I'm down. So I'm negative, right? I'm student loans now. Again, so yeah, you're down student loans because back then, at the end of my training program, PGY10, all that stuff, can do all the stuff I described. Right. I was making $4.50 an hour. Okay, so right, so okay, so. Basically, yeah. And so then I said, all right, well, which bank do I go to? And they said, okay, you need to go talk to Selma Bartlett over at Bank of Nevada. I'm like, oh, okay. So I go down to Selma Bartlett, and she looked at me, and she's awesome. And she probably single-handedly put half of the doctors in town in business.
Oh,
okay,
amazing.
So she was like this kind of.
She was the doctor whisperer.
Very much so, and so we're talking, and she says, "Oh, okay, so you just got out?" Yeah. He says, "You have some student loans?" Yeah. I said, "How much?" Okay, and she says. He says, "Where are you trained?" "Okay, great, fine." So you don't have any money? He's like, "No, I don't have any money." He says, "You need some money?" I'm like, "Yeah." They tell me I need some money. He says, "Yep, you're going to need some money." I'm like, "Okay, how much do you want?" I'm like, "I don't know. How much should I ask for, Mrs. Barley?" He says,
right.
I said, "You don't need about this much." And I said, "Oh, okay." And so she says, "Yeah, okay, sure." And then, let's go ahead and go over and sign these things. I'm
right.
like, okay.
Like signing your life away.
Oh, yeah. So I walk into her office and she's gave me a loan for $250,000. I said, how much you need? And she says, $250,000. I'm like, oh, okay. And then she.
Which is pretty daunting when you just came out of.
It's yeah. You could have said, "Oh, you're going to go to the moon next week." Yeah, sure.
Exactly.
Okay, whatever. Where do I sign?
$1 million.
Where do I sign? Yeah, because I could. Yeah, please. And but she was actually very. She says, "Okay," and then now here's some other folks you need to talk to, blah, 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 so they can go ahead and send you folks. And what hospitals? Okay, we'll make sure that you are active in the hospital and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yeah. So we did all of that.
That's amazing.
And, and so she was like, yeah, so you got a guy with me who's negative and you want to go ahead and give me cash money. And I asked her years later, I said, why did you take a chance on me? And she said she's in her 40 years of banking at that point. She's never had a doctor default. Yeah. And so one, and then two, she said, now we've had some divorces, we've had some challenges, we've had some partners run off with the money, we've had that, okay, but she says, as far as the risk goes, he says the risk was really not a lot, and especially where you came from when you train, and I you can tell that you're a local kid and you want to like work, so I'm like, okay, so I went, oh, okay, well, so that was the big thing, and then of course. You learn with your foot in your mouth, and I spent a lot of dumb money, especially on stuff like advertising and all that sort of thing.
Because you got to kind of figure out
you don't know
what to do.
Yeah,
right?
you don't know. And there was back then it was Yellow Page ads. That's how long ago that was.
Yellow Pages.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And so you'll love this story. So a second Yellow Page book comes out. A competitor to the Yellow Pages, and they're like, "Oh yeah, it's gonna be great." I'm like, "Oh, all right." So we went ahead and we took it out, and so the book comes out, right? And so they're billing me every month, and besides my name, address, and phone number being wrong, it was great. And so I would get these phone calls, and they would say, "Hey, Doc, is your office surrounded by razor wire?" I'm like, "Well, no. Why you ask?" And they say, "Well, yeah, this is where the Yellow Pages told me." Then they were sending them to the Juvenile Detention Center up in the northern part of Las Vegas. And I'm like, "Oh, good Lord."
Stories you can't make up.
And I'm just like, "Yeah, right." And so then they call me up. They say, "Yeah, you stopped paying your bill." You're like, "Yeah, absolutely."
Yeah, why is that?
Yeah, and she said, "Well, you got to pay." I'm like, "Well, no." And so we're back and forth, threatened small claims and the whole thing. I'm just kind of like, so that was just one of the many places that was ridiculous. But you make some mistakes, you make it through, and you try to find some mentors that help you, et cetera, et cetera. And then, because you're young and you just want to operate. You just want to work, and you hope you find a good office manager that knows what they're doing and knows what a plastic surgeon's office supposed to look like.
And I know that's a challenge because finding the right staff it takes years, right, to put all that together.
Yep. Yes, and we've had some great staff and we've had some doozies. But having said that, no, we're right now we're very, very fortunate, and I learned a long time ago to fire fast and hire slow. I used to do the opposite. Mm-hmm. The other thing too is no matter how good a person is, you can't have a cancer in the locker room. Okay, you can't have somebody.
Yeah, they all have to. You mentioned team.
Doing bad things.
The team aspect is very
if they're a bad teammate or if they're talking smack in the locker room, they got to go. And no matter how integral they are to your business. So and thankfully I didn't have that in my practice, but I've seen other guys and gals go down that one. The other one too is make sure your front office staff is top notch because so many guys we're in the back. Yeah, we're seeing patients. We're not in the front listening to phone calls. And so if somebody calls up and the person, your gal is, it's usually gal, is rude to a patient, the patient will hang up and you never see that patient and you never know that you never saw the patient. Right. So that's not a statistic that shows up on the sheet.
We had that conversation and I've noticed that myself looking at people's reviews, and often what you'll see is I love the doctor, but I could not deal with the president.
That's the most. I mean, especially we'll pick on internal medicine. Is the doctor usually the patient loved the doctor, but it's the front office didn't get a call back. I didn't know what my labs were,
or billing issues or whatever,
insurance issue, all of that stuff, and so that's where you get your 1-star reviews from. Right. Yes, there's some docs that don't get along with patients well, and so you get a couple of those. But by and large, it's the front office business stuff that'll get you nuts. Yeah. So and so going forward, you just got to kind of try to figure that out and then try to balance what we talked is efficiency with really listening to the patient, et cetera, and then do you buy the new laser and what kind of amenities do you want? And some guys and gals are very quick to go ahead and get the new laser, et cetera. They're early adapters, which is great. I am probably the opposite of that in as much as I really kind of want to see it tried and true before I delve into it. So people are much more efficient than I am, or much more cutting edge than I am when it comes to those things. But when it comes to the stuff in the OR, I like to think that, I really try to educate myself as much as possible. And that's the place where it kind of counts, for me.
Right. Yeah. And I think maybe sometimes patients don't realize the financial investment that offices have to make.
Yeah.
We talked about different products that I'm not going to mention, but I know, you make the investment and maybe you don't get the return. So it's a challenge, right?
The AMA will tell you that if you want to go ahead and increase a neighborhood's economic well-being, stick a doctor there. And why? Is because we spend money on stuff like ultrasound machines and personnel. We create jobs and lunch and all
the ancillary
and other things. So and so do your patients because they're now in the neighborhood. So the AMA has a whole series of stuff on that. Is like how to empower neighborhoods. Is stick a doc there. But it is still much a small business, and so you have all of those challenges of running a small business. And there was, a couple points in my life that I was president of the medical society here in town, and my line was
which is a big thing. We shouldn't just gloss over that.
which is also running a small business.
Right.
But at some point, there was a couple points that says, well, I'm currently running 2 nonprofits, so
right, that's a whole other challenge.
But a bump, yes, right. So and one we knew was a nonprofit, the other one
it just didn't make a profit.
So
that happens. Yeah.
So sometimes the months could be lean every now and then, but COVID hits or some craziness. But having said that, is so basically is and you want to be true to your beliefs and you want to make payroll and you want to advocate for your your staff and all of that. And so, yeah, it comes with that. And then you have pressures, and especially now I'm a little different because I don't take insurance, but the folks that do the insurance work, boy, they're getting, kind of squozed, by the payers. They're getting squozed by all of these other entities. But at the same time, the costs continue to go up. So it can be difficult, especially for those physicians specialties that historically never make money. Pediatrics, I'm looking at you, and they do it for love. They love for the kids and everything else like that. But again, we've talked about this 100 times. If you young folks at home, if you're thinking to go into medicine to make a ton of money, you get out now. Go into law or finance.
We have talked about it. That's a bit of a myth where people assume that, oh, you're a doctor, you're rich, and they don't really understand the full dynamics of that situation.
Yeah, and so there's that, and then there's the opportunity cost as well, because again, it took me 18 years to actually get out into business, and of course, any business never makes money in their first year, right? And so, how much are you paying yourself the first year? Not much more than resident.
Which pushes you out to 20 years.
So and they've done that study too, where I think it was a UPS driver versus a doctor, and if actually at the end, if the UPS driver worked as many hours as the doctor, he'd actually be ahead. Or she would be ahead. Yeah. So, but that's opportunity cost. But having said all of that, there's still that kind of pressure. The other interesting thing that's going on in medicine is now a lot of docs are employees. In fact, 51% of physicians now are employees. And that's kind of changing the dynamic as well, because then what that leads to is sometimes a loss of autonomy for that particular doctor. And so a classic example, and this gets coupled with a non-compete clause. And now there is a movement afoot to stop the non-compete clauses. So, and some, are more onerous than others, right? So, for example, you come to Las Vegas and you sign a thing with a non-compete that, okay, well, I'm not going to compete with you within, 5 miles of your practice. Well, that's basically the town. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because it's not that big.
And San Francisco is 7 miles by 7 miles,
that's
right? So if you do that, you boxed them out, off the peninsula.
How are you going to make a profit and survive?
Right. So what happens is these folks come in, they sign the contracts, they start working, and that's fine. And oftentimes those folks may have a nice life-work balance, but sometimes not. In as much as we know this by data, is especially the family practice and internal medicine folks, primary care, they'll go ahead and they'll see patients for 10 hours a day, and then they'll go home and they'll eat dinner or whatever, and then they'll get back on their laptops and do charting until 2 a.m, and then they'll get back up at 6 o'clock, rinse and repeat every day. And
for years,
that really will grind you, one. And then so you have that. And then if stuff at the workplace starts happening, like, oh yeah, I know that you usually see 50 patients a day, but we're going to move that up to 65. Like, well, wait a minute. I'll say, well, there was this thing, this occupational therapy thing that we can get to your patients, but we're not going to take that. We're going to take that away. So you're going to have to find another place for patient.
And then you're like, now what?
And so, so now you have all the responsibility but no authority. And so that is the pinch point where a lot of folks are feeling burned out, and they're doing their best, but, it makes it for a difficult situation.
Which kind of leads us into, we know some mutual doctor friends that have kind of getting ready to retire. I won't mention names. But doctors and burnout. I would think that is a real topic, not only plastic surgeons, but just in general.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
Well, we've been talking about that. Medicine, have been talking about that a lot lately, just because of those things, the pinch points and the squeeze points that I alluded to, one. And then two, it's got to the point that folks are retiring early, which is a big...
it's hard to find a general doctor anymore.
Brain drain, because you want somebody to be there for you.
Right.
And but at its worst, it leads to self-destructive behavior on part of the doctor, and even suicide. We lose 400 doctors a year now, which is more than police officers and more than firemen. And they have tremendously stressful jobs, and they come with PTSD and see really terrible things in the street. So those guys and gals have it hard.
A lot of pressure.
So, and then with the doctors, as he says, is you get this pressure because you went into medicine because you want to do good for people, and you're unable to do that with the parameters that you have. And so some folks, again, self-medicate with drugs or alcohol. Some people find places that are outlets, meaning the gym, running, et cetera, et cetera. Some folks find comradeship at the hospitals or the medical societies, or if there's religious guys and gals, and so you kind of try to figure out how to ameliorate that best you can.
The most positive way to deal with the pressure,
right? And it's not only the physician; it's also the physician and the families, and I'm sure the firefighters and police officers, same thing. There's the Clark County Medical Society. They used to call it the Auxiliary. Now they call it the Alliance, and Washoe County has one, and Nevada State has one. And these are the spouses of physicians. Notice I didn't say wives. That will go ahead and get together and support one another as well, because there's some certain, we all have challenges, but there's some certain challenges on families, especially folks that take a lot of call or something like, when are you going to be home? I don't know.
Right.
Oh, geez, the pager went off. I got to go back up in the middle of the night.
And then they come home with all that stress. And
and so, the last thing you had two patients die or something bad happen or something that particular day or whatever. And so some days are more stressful than not. And so, so that can be stressful on families as well. And so nowadays, we're looking to see, medicine are looking to see, okay, what's causing this, and then how are we gonna fix it?
Right.
And it can be everything from more. I don't think another pizza lunch is going to be helpful at this point in the ballgame.
Maybe just even having the peer support, having, like you said, colleagues that you can call and kind of not commiserate, but kind of
So we commiserate fine. Yeah. So
we compare notes.
We do that. But I've talked to a couple guys that may be going through some stuff, and I would just call or text like, "Hey, how you doing?" You know what I mean? So, mental status check. How you doing? All right. Okay. And I said, text back or not, but just so you know.
Checking in.
Yeah. And that's fine. So, and the other thing too is especially with docs is to have some sort of quote unquote safe place, I guess. For a while during the COVID, where it was really getting intense, because now, and especially the nursing staff for sure, and some of the docs, you're wearing the darn N95 mask for 8 to 12 hours. It just
adds a whole nother level of
and you have
stuff.
All this PPD, and you're dealing with the virus that we didn't know, and oh, by the way, it's deadly, and oh, can you bring it home to your family?
And oh, by the way, we got to keep our business going.
And all that.
Right.
And so they had a warm line here in Las Vegas, meaning that the psychiatry folks had a phone number that you can call. It wasn't 24/7, so it wasn't a hotline, it was a warm line.
Right.
But you could call and say, hey, you don't have to be a doctor. You can just be somebody, you can be the guy pushing the mop in the hospital or whatever, and say, hey, I'm having a difficult time with XYZ. And there was no names, no charts, and so there was no sequelae of, hey, I'm reaching out, for which there shouldn't be, but some folks still thought that way.
Right.
And so that I think was helpful, and also for psychiatric drugs, because sometimes you'll see a patient who's on this kind of strange psychiatric drug that you've never heard of before, and you want to dispense something, and you might want to bounce it off a psych guy or gal to just go, is this going to interact? Is this going to be okay? Right. And then our pharmacy colleagues help us with that, thank God, as well. So, but having said that, so you have different pressures, again, depending if you're in private practice, academic practice, there's publish or perish, right? So you got to go ahead and publish all these papers. And now there was a huge walkout of a prestigious scientific publication, because this publication was, you go ahead and you do all this work and you make all this research and you write the grants and and you finally put a paper together, and you're going to go ahead and submit it to this thing with this this
publisher.
journal, And they, okay, great, you're accepted. Yay! Oh, yeah, that'll be $3,000. And so they're charging the author to publish his work,
right?
And so
interesting.
And then the numbers kept going up and up and up, and so finally their editorial board said, look, you got to change this. They said, okay, we're not changing it, and the editorial board left. Mm-hmm. And so that was really interesting, because if you would have told me that 20, 30 years ago, I'm like, there's no chance that would ever happen. And here it is. So there are some things that people are working at, and some things are changing. So yeah, whether it's, academic medicine, whether you're, a hired medical person, whether you're, hang up a shingle on your own, but there's, so much regulation, and there's things that you have to deal with, that sometimes it can be a bit much. And that's not even, just being a regular doctor and seeing a patient.
And just being a human, having to deal with just dealing with life.
Yeah, there's that. That's overrated.
What do you do?
It's overrated.
Yeah, right. What do you personally do to relax?
So
what's a good relaxation day for Dr. Roth?
Relax.
What's that?
What's relaxation?
Well, you enjoy sports.
In my best Batman voice. What?
You enjoy sports. We just had the hockey.
Yes, we did. So yes, I'll say it. Yes, the Vegas Golden Knights are Stanley Cup champions.
Our little plug in.
How about some of that?
Yeah,
so apologies to all my East Coast friends, but actually they've been very supportive. And actually, when we were about to win the thing, I got a bunch of texts and said, "Wow, this is great. Yeah. I wish I'm sorry that my team isn't in it, but but I'm glad for you. You know what I mean?" So, and then one guy, when they won the fifth game, and the Stanley Cup was out on the ice and everything, and one guy said, "Best moment in sports coming up right now." And because he was obviously watching at home. Yeah. And it was just magical for the town. And those guys are such good guys. They like each other. They go out to dinner together all the time. Their guys are always at hospitals or doing something in the community. Yeah. And we needed them on the 1 October after the shooting, and they were exactly what we needed. And it's worked well. And again, if you would have told me 40 years ago, yeah, we're going to have a hockey team.
And they're going to win the Stanley Cup.
And within 6 years, they're going to win the Stanley Cup. You're out of your mind.
Well, right? So I know.
Out of your mind.
Yeah, because you grew up here, but I moved here in 1989, and I've seen the town almost triple in size, and it's just crazy.
Yeah, just absolute craziness. So to answer your question about relaxation. So typically I try best I can, to try to do something athletic, whether it's run or swim, or I used to play lacrosse back in the day. So I try to, get into that headspace a little bit. And for me, that's always helpful. It's kind of like a cheat code to get up early in the morning and do that. And for me, you have to do it in the morning, because the evening always falls apart, because, I have a little one, and who knows what happened that day, and, whatever, or you run late in the OR, or whatever the case may be. So there's that. And I think it's helpful to find some camaraderie with the medical society, because again, as a solo private practitioner in plastic surgery, and I go to the outpatient surgery centers, thank goodness I don't go to the hospitals a lot like I used to, and so I don't see other physicians. And
you're not interacting as much.
No, I don't go to the have lunch with a bunch of the guys and gals, and I'm like, so it's nice to see. Oh, what's up with OBGYN? Oh, pediatrics is doing that now. Oh, there's somebody new that came to that. Mm-hmm. So for me, that was trying to get myself out of my own silo. I think that was fun, and of course, my family also is always helpful as far as that goes. And then, we'd go, we're a big sports family. And so whether it's boxing or Knights or basketball, we also have the world champion WNBA team, the Aces, which is really cool. By the way, it's awesome, and especially as a girl dad, to go ahead and see the athleticism and the dedication for that these folks put in. It's amazing, and I think it's much more fundamentally sound basketball, in as much as they're not taking 3 steps, they're not palming, they're not carrying, they're not as much. Apologies to
and they're
NBA,
amazing athletes.
They're amazing athletes, and so that's good. And those guys are gals. Those gals are always again out in the community. They're always doing and stuff, and so that is terrific. And then Mark Davis actually is, who actually owns the team as well as the Raiders, really is putting a lot of effort in there, and that's really an important project to him, is the WNBA and the Aces and such. So, and he's always at the games and such. So those are kind of cool things. And then I still have buddies from in town for forever, and then a cadre of friends.
Yeah, it's good to have you have your practice, your business, but you want to have a full life. That's important, right?
We try. And the other thing is obviously with the little one, with her school, you go ahead and you're with a lot of the other moms and dads all the time, and so that's always important too, and that to kind of reset your head a little bit, and really focus on what's important.
We have a great, very generous community in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
Lots of fundraisers, lots of community interactions. I know you guys are very involved in that.
There's
awesome.
always that. There's always another charity thing to go to, which is great, and we get to see other folks and chit chat and really kind of sit back and say, wow, look what this town's doing. Look at the good that actually we're bringing forth. So so with all that, sure, we all have our days, and there are the days that you would rather just kind of speed through it and pull your covers over your head. Okay, fine, but
yes, we all have those.
We all have those days, but by and large, I'm very grateful. I wake up in the morning and I go, oh, good, I get another shot at this. Okay, and I'm very grateful.
Every day you wake up is a good day.
Yeah, it's a plus.
It's a plus.
It's a bonus round.
Let's tell the folks how they can find us.
Sure. So basically, we're all over the place. Our main one is the website, which is www.jjrothmd.com. That's JJROTHMD. .com. And then social media, we're on Instagram and Facebook and TikTok and YouTube and all that stuff.
There's so many.
All that stuff.
There's so many to keep track of.
And Friendster and MySpace.
There's no more MySpace.
All of it. So and do check it out. Please subscribe. That'll be awesome. And comment. And then if in your comments, we actually do read the comments in the DMs and the things that you leave. And then if there's something you want to hear, let us know, and we'll get that on for you. And we also, by the way, pick up this thing called a telephone. So if there is a question or concern or whatever, go ahead and please ring us up, and we're happy to answer questions for you or have you come in and take a look at whatever you have a question on.
Absolutely. And check out the notes on the shows. All of our contact information is additionally added on there with the links. And thank you so much for joining us. I wish you have an awesome day.
Have a spectacular day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us. For further information, please visit the podcast website link for Dr. Jeffrey Roth. See you next time.